Right now, across the United States, there is a massive, multi-billion-dollar graveyard hiding in plain sight. You drive past them every single day. Dealership lots are absolutely overflowing with brand new 2026 vehicles that are physically rotting on the asphalt. We are talking about cars that have been sitting completely untouched for 300, 400, and even 700 days. But here's what the automotive industry desperately wants to keep hidden. These cars aren't sitting just because of high interest rates or inflation. They are sitting because the manufacturers completely failed to understand human psychology. Automakers built vehicles that actively trigger cognitive dissonance, brand confusion, and outright financial panic in the human brain. The free market has completely rejected them, and now, dealers are bleeding hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in floor plan interest just trying to keep the lights on. Before we expose the raw market data, I have a massive question for you. Have you ever walked into a dealership, looked at a shiny new SUV with a $70,000 price tag, and instantly felt your stomach drop? That is your brain's survival instinct actively rejecting a terrible financial decision. Dealerships spend millions of dollars on psychological warfare, from the lighting in the showroom to the pressure tactics in the finance office, just to override your gut feeling. If you want to build your financial armor, avoid the dealership traps, and understand the dark psychology of the car market, hit that subscribe button right now. And drop a comment below telling me, which car brand do you think is pulling the biggest scam in 2026? I read every single one. Let's get into the data. Kicking off the list at number 8 is the grandfather of the EV movement, the Nissan LEAF. Right now, there is a massive 296-day supply of Nissan LEAFs suffocating dealership lots. This car is a textbook example of the psychology of planned obsolescence mixed with a corporate sunk cost fallacy. When the LEAF launched over a decade ago, it was revolutionary. But the human brain expects technology to evolve rapidly. Nissan, however, refused to adapt. While the rest of the industry moved to heavy-duty 800-volt charging architectures and 300-mile ranges, Nissan kept selling the LEAF with an antiquated CHAdeMO charging port that is essentially useless at modern fast-charging stations. Psychologically, buyers look at the LEAF and instantly perceive it as a dinosaur. Nobody wants to spend $35,000 on a piece of technology that feels like a flip phone in a smartphone world. The market recognizes that buying a LEAF in 2026 is an instant, unrecoverable depreciation trap. At number 7, we have a premium German luxury SUV that has completely lost its soul, the Audi Q5. According to CarEdge data, the Q5 is currently sitting at a staggering 363 days of supply. That means it would take a full year to sell out the current inventory, even if Audi stopped building them today. Why are buyers ignoring it? It comes down to a psychological concept called innovation fatigue. Audi has practically kept the exact same exterior design language for a decade. When a buyer is dropping $60,000 on a luxury vehicle, their brain demands a dopamine hit. They want status. They want their neighbors to know they bought a new car. But when you buy a 2026 Audi Q5, it looks almost identical to a 2018 Audi Q5. There is no visual reward. Combine that lack of visual evolution with the terrifying maintenance costs of German engineering as it ages, and buyers are simply walking across the street to buy the vastly more reliable Lexus RX. Audi relied on brand loyalty, and the market punished them for their laziness. Number 6 is an absolute financial disaster for Stellantis, the Jeep Grand Wagoneer L. This extended wheelbase behemoth is rotting on lots with a 282-day supply. The failure of this vehicle is deeply rooted in the psychology of anchoring bias. For 80 years, the Jeep brand has been deeply anchored in the consumer's mind as a rugged, dirt-loving, accessible off-road vehicle. You take the doors off a Wrangler, you don't wear a tuxedo in it. So when Jeep suddenly bolted a massive, chrome-covered luxury box onto a truck frame and slapped a terrifying $100,000 plus price tag on it, the consumer's brain completely short-circuited. People who have $110,000 to spend on a massive luxury SUV are buying a Cadillac Escalade, a Lincoln Navigator, or a Range Rover. They refuse to pay 6 figures for a badge that sits next to a $30,000 Jeep Compass in the service bay. Jeep violently broke their own psychological anchor, and now dealers cannot give these things away. At number 5 is a car that tried to fake its way to the top, the Maserati Grecale. With a brutal 321 days of inventory, the Grecale is a masterclass in the halo effect collapse. The halo effect is a marketing trick where a brand uses their ultra-expensive supercars to make you think their cheap entry-level cars are just as good. Maserati priced the Grecale at around $80,000 to compete with the Porsche Macan. But buyers are smarter than they used to be. They opened the door of the Grecale and immediately realized they were looking at the exact same cheap plastic Stellantis window switches and infotainment screens used in a Dodge or a Jeep. When you charge $80,000 for Italian prestige but deliver Chrysler parts bin engineering, it shatters the psychological illusion of luxury. Add in the legendary, terrifying electrical failures that plague Maseratis the second the warranty expires, and buyers are terrified. It is Italian prestige on the outside, and a mechanic's nightmare on the inside. Number 4 is one of the most controversial vehicles built in the 21st century, the Ford Mustang Mach-E. This EV is drowning in a 350-day supply. The root of this disaster is pure cognitive dissonance, which happens when a person's brain holds two conflicting beliefs at the same time, causing extreme mental discomfort. For 60 years, the word Mustang has meant a roaring, gasoline-powered, rear-wheel drive two-door muscle car. It is the symbol of American rebellion. When Ford took that legendary badge and slapped it onto a silent electric four-door family crossover, it actively angered their core demographic. Traditional Mustang buyers felt betrayed and refused to look at it. Meanwhile, the tech-obsessed EV buyers who wanted an electric crossover went out and bought a Tesla Model Y because it had a vastly superior supercharger network. Ford alienated their loyalists and failed to capture the tech crowd. Now, massive lots of Mach-Es are sitting dead in the water. Breaking into the top 3, we have a true American tragedy, the Dodge Charger. Right now, there is an apocalyptic 452-day supply of Dodge Chargers paralyzing dealership lots. How does one of the most popular muscle cars in history suddenly stop selling? The psychology of nostalgia disconnect. For a decade, Dodge sold the Charger purely on the emotional, aggressive, nostalgic roar of the Hemi V8. It was the bad boy car. But for 2026, Stellantis forced the brand to pivot. They killed the legendary Hemi V8. Dodge tried to replace it with electric powertrains and the Hurricane twin-turbo INLINE6. While the new engines make horsepower on paper, they completely lack the visceral, violent rumble that Charger buyers crave. You cannot sell a muscle car purely on a spreadsheet. You have to sell the emotion. By killing the V8, Dodge killed the soul of the car. The hardcore fans walked away, and the inventory is piling up at a terrifying rate. At number 2 is the worst-selling mainstream EV in America, the Volkswagen ID.4. The numbers here are genuinely sickening. There is a 536-day supply of ID.4s on dealership lots. It would take a year and a half to sell these off. The failure of this car is driven by technological paralysis. When a driver sits behind the wheel, their brain needs intuitive, physical feedback. They need to turn a knob to lower the air conditioning. Instead, Volkswagen's engineers completely lost their minds. They ripped out almost every physical button and replaced them with unlit haptic touch sliders and a massively delayed, bug-filled infotainment screen. You literally cannot find the volume slider at night because it doesn't light up. Drivers have to take their eyes off the road just to turn on the defroster. It creates massive cognitive overload and frustration. The software was so broken at launch that it permanently destroyed the vehicle's reputation. Buyers test drive the ID.4, get incredibly annoyed within 5 minutes, and walk away. And finally, number 1. The most absurd, mind-boggling inventory disaster in the modern automotive era. The Polestar 4. This vehicle is currently sitting with an absolutely catastrophic 710 days of frozen inventory across the country. Almost 2 full years of unsold cars. Why did this happen? The psychology of form over function delusion. Automotive designers sometimes get so obsessed with looking futuristic that they completely ignore basic human survival instincts. In the Polestar 4, the designers made one specific, unforgivable decision. They completely removed the rear window. There is no glass behind you. It is a solid wall of metal. Instead of looking in your rearview mirror to see the traffic behind you, you have to stare at a digital camera feed on a screen. The human brain is hardwired for spatial awareness. When you trap a driver in a metal box and take away their physical line of sight, it induces instant claustrophobia and anxiety. What happens if the camera glitches? What happens if it gets covered in snow or mud? Buyers are walking into showrooms, realizing they cannot physically look behind them, and running for the exit. It is the ultimate design delusion, and it resulted in the hardest to sell car in America. The automotive market is ruthless, and the data does not lie. When manufacturers try to manipulate your psychology, ignore basic functionality, or kill the soul of a brand, the free market violently rejects them. And remember, when dealerships are bleeding cash on 700 days of unsold inventory, They will try everything in their power to aggressively push these dead cars onto you. Do not let a salesman pressure you into signing a 72-month loan on a rolling liability. If this deep dive helped you understand the dark psychology of the car market, hit that subscribe button. We pull the raw numbers and expose the dealership traps every single week. Drive smart, protect your wallet, and I'll see you in the next one.